And now, back to David Spada and Elliott Harris for more Sports and Torts on TalkZone.com.
Next up, we have former Oakland Raiders center Jim Otto in an interview that we conducted a little while ago.
So when you went down to Miami there, were you recruited heavily out of high school, or was that your only choice?
When I was a senior in high school, I had 48 university scholarships. And Miami was one of them that I hadn't really thought that much about until I had visited Minnesota, Wisconsin, Northwestern, and schools such as that. And then I visited Miami. It was in February, about this time of the year. I think when I left Wausau, Wisconsin, it was 30 below zero, and I got to Miami, it had to be about 75. And I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe how it could be so cold in one spot and so nice and warm, and everything smelled so fresh because everything was so green. I mean, it was just really, for a country boy from Wisconsin, it was just really a dream that I never thought it would come true.
So it wasn't a tough sell in the middle of winter?
No, it actually, when it came time to go to for two-a-days in the summer in August, I was going to Minnesota, and we went to Minnesota, got there in our old car, and the next morning we turned around, drove right back to Wausau, and then I think we had to borrow $20 from my parents, and I was able to make it with gas money all the way down to Miami.
So Northwestern was recruiting you in Ara Parsegan back then?
It was just before Ara Parsegan, and it was in 1956. Yeah, it was the spring of '56 that I was recruited. It was my senior year in high school.
Because Northwestern had some good players back then. I mean, you had Fred Williamson. You had the NFL Today host Irv Cross was part of those teams in the late '50s. I remember.
Right, that's true, and Wisconsin and Minnesota had two great teams as well. I would have played in Rose Bowls if I had went to either one of those two schools.
Now, when you went to Miami, they didn't tell you how hot and humid it would be, did they, in August and September?
No, and it's hot and humid for sure, and also Miami was on probation, and I really had to think heavy on that. That was the thing that held me from going there to begin with, and then I looked at their schedule for the 4 years that I would be there, and the University of Miami played people in the Atlantic Coast Conference, Southeast Conference, Southwest Conference, the Big Ten, and teams like that all over, and I'd have and be exposed to a lot of different types of football, and I'd be able to play against almost every conference in America.
I see
that was back in the day when Miami was an independent. It wasn't part of the conference. And,
that's true. We were independent, but we were also on probation.
What I don't get is, I mean, okay, you were 6'2", and they said you were undersized, and the NFL teams weren't interested in you. How big did they want a center?
Well, back in those days, centers like Jim Ringo was probably the premier center at the time that I got out of college, and he was with Green Bay, and he weighed about 245, and that was, they may have thought he was a little small. When I got out of college, I weighed 217, and I went to training camp, and I working out, having time to lift weights and everything like I did. I went to 240 the first year, my rookie year. And then gradually I worked my way up through weight training. There wasn't too much weight training going on in those days with a lot of the athletes, and but I believed in it. I studied kinesiology in college, and I understood how I could build muscle and build strength and quickness, and that's what I did. I did a lot of weight training and working out, to the point where I worked my way up to 276. That was the biggest I was. And so they didn't believe that I would get that big. A lot of the teams would come to me later on. They tried to trade for me. They tried to get me from the Raiders. But as long as when Mr. Davis came in 1963, he wouldn't let me go for anything.
Did you have any idea what you were getting into going to Oakland, which is just starting up in 1960? But the leagues all knew it's your first pro season.
Well, sure, I didn't know what I was getting into because it was a step up, but really, in those days, the American Football League in 1960 wasn't that good. I mean, we didn't have that good of football players to begin with. It took a couple years for guys like Al Davis and Sid Gilman and Hank Stram and guys like that to really start recruiting and signing some more better players into the league. And I had hopes that I would be a part of that all along. But you know, I just wanted to play. I didn't get drafted by the National Football League, and they said they were going to draft me, but then when draft day came, they didn't draft me. I just wanted to play football, and getting the chance to play with Oakland, and then playing the way I did in Oakland to begin with was just the best thing for me, because I grew up there. I really grew up there, got big, and I learned how to really play football the way I liked it.
I mean, Oakland amassed some great talent there in the 60s and 70s. I mean, you had Fred Biletnikoff, you had yourself, Tom Flores, LaMonica, and it seemed like it was a more wide-open offense in the AFL with the Raiders versus the NFL.
Well, yes, that's true. I like that. You know, let's just say that in 1960, 61, and 62, we were kind of the doormat of that league. And I look at the year 1962 and this past season with the Raiders as almost being the same. We this year, our Raider football team won 4 games. In my first year with the Raiders, we only won a couple games. And it was tough. It was really tough, but I knew that there was a light at the end of the tunnel, and that if I played hard and got my teammates to play hard, and we had a coach that we could have faith in and develop in, we would be good. And it took Al Davis to do that for us, and so I was happy all while I was there.
Yeah, no, I mean, the first 3 coaches you had, Eddie Erdeletz, Marty Feldman, and Red Conkright, they won, I think, a cumulative 9-33.
Right.
At some point, did you say, gee, maybe I'll get lucky and they'll trade me?
Well, I used to, think that maybe they would trade me, but it never did happen. And but there were teams trying to trade for me, but the Oakland people wouldn't let me go. Even when Miami got their franchise, Miami, being that I was from the University of Miami, the Miami Dolphins would have liked to have had me there to be a player. They'd like to have a University of Miami player on their team, but Al Davis wouldn't let me go, and so I didn't mind it. I loved the entire time I was in Oakland, and I'm still an Oakland boy.
What was Al Davis like as a coach? People know Al Davis, the owner. As a coach, how was he?
As a coach, Al Davis was far superior to anyone. I think that Sid Gilman was an excellent coach for San Diego Chargers. He was a very fine coach. So was Hank Stram. But Al Davis put so many innovations into football while he was coaching, and he did so many different things in coaching players. He was excellent at working with wide receivers and stuff. And, he had Lance Allworth, who is in the Hall of Fame. He worked with him at San Diego. He worked with Biletnikoff. He worked with a lot of our wide receivers and also offensive linemen like me. I mean, he would come up to me during the practice and tell me, he said, Jim, just move your right foot just a little bit more to outside, he says, and then drive off of that foot. And, he had different little things he'd help me with, and he'd help everybody with, actually. And, knowing what to do. Just no different than way back then. We played in some games where it was very similar to what Baltimore had to do this weekend, was get a direct snap from the center and run around the end zone to run the clock out. I mean, we did that the very first time we did that. People thought we were nuts. And I predicted it this weekend when I saw what situation they're in. I said, they better get that ball on a direct snap and run the clock out. As they did, I was kind of excited about that. But, I mean, he did a lot of different things that were innovative as to how we would well, actually, John Harbaugh ran a fake punt, or was it a field goal Sunday? And, you know, things like that. There are a lot of guys that would never do that. They don't have the guts to do it. So that's the type of coaching that he would be.
I mean, because when he became coach of the Raiders, he wasn't just the coach; he was the general manager, and I don't think that ever happened in the NFL at that time.
No, I think Lombardi was head coach and general manager, wasn't he? But I know that Al Davis, when he came aboard, that's what he was, and you know, and he had the help also of a Ron Wolf, who was a real outstanding football person as well, that had kind of grown up with Mr. Davis, and so they were. He was a big help to Coach Davis.
Now, when you were a rookie, there was a rookie quarterback named Tom Flores. Did you ever envision he would end up coaching the Raiders?
I didn't envision that at all. No, I knew Tom was a football person. He knew what he was doing out there on the field. He had the help of, naturally, the first three years he didn't do it that well because he was sick. We also were starting the American Football League, but it was right after that, after his illness, that he got better and came on and showed what he could do. And he had a football mind, and he had a mind for coaching, and it was no surprise to me that he became the Raider coach, and then later on Seattle, and right on up the ranks.
This is what I don't get about the Hall of Fame. They kept promoting Bill Parcells. You keep hearing Don Coryell. You hear about all these great coaches, and Tony Dungy, he's going to go in as the first minority coach in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But Tom Flores won 2 championships with Oakland. He was a solid player in the NFL. Why is he not getting considered as a finalist for the Hall of Fame?
If I had that answer, I'd give it to you. I don't have that answer. Jim Plunkett as well. You know, you look at both of those guys. They're both Hispanic. You don't like to think that's what's holding them back, but you know, there's the selection committee for the Hall of Fame. I wouldn't want to say that they were racist or anything like that, but I think a lot of them thought that Tom Flores and guys like Tom were tutored so heavily by Mr. Davis that it wasn't really their ability to do what they're doing. They were getting it from Mr. Davis, and I think that's unfair because even back a few years ago when John Madden went in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, they wanted to put him. The selection committee wanted to put him into the Pro Football Hall of Fame as a football-related person, not as a coach. And I was very, very upset about it. I went to the Hall of Fame for one of the selection committee meetings, and I stood before those people and really read them out and told them what I thought about the situation, and that John Madden was a football coach, and the greatness of the Raiders at that time was because of John Madden.
When the Raiders started winning, they did so on a consistent basis. They win the AFL title in '67. What did that feel like after all the years of struggling?
Well, it was fantastic. It was, you know, I love a football player loves good coaching. and they'll respect the coaches because it's important for a coach to take you the way. You know, you saw these two brothers coaching this weekend and prior to this throughout the season, and what they did and everything. These are the kind of coaches that a real football player loves to play for, and they would give their shirt off their back to play for a guy like that. Even back in the day when John Gruden was a Raider coach, every young guy in the National Football League would like to have been with the Raiders at that time. So when you get a coach that has the ability, the desire, and the drive, like these guys, like the Harbaughs, like Gruden, like Al Davis, like a lot of these guys, it's like a dream come true to have someone like that you can play for.
I mean, it was a tough act to follow. I mean, Al Davis was coach, then you went to Madden, then you went to Flores. From the founding of the Raiders, or early in the Raiders' history, like 63, 64, up until like 88, you only had 3 coaches.
I know, and it's fantastic. And you know, for a guy like me who loved football as much as me, I would like to be playing yet today, or maybe I should have gone into coaching. Maybe I should have been a coach, because football is just very, very, it's been the most important part of my life, and I would love to be able to get out there and compete. But this guy you're talking to right now is 75 years old. Can you believe that?
I can't.
No.
But I mean, if you were a Raider coach, you were set. Look at Blitnikoff and Willie Brown. I mean, they went through head coaches, but those assistant coaches kept their jobs, because if Al liked you, you weren't going anywhere.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But you know, the whole Raider image and everything is a phenomenal history, and it was great, and I cherish all those moments.
Now, I will say the Raiders are the only team that I can think of, pro team, to have 2 players with the last name of Otto, because you had Gus Otto at linebacker. Did you go up against him in practice?
Not really. Gus was an outside linebacker, but he was a very fine football player, exceptional football player, intelligent. I mean, he didn't break an assignment on pass coverage. He didn't break an assignment on wherever these stunts were going. Gus was always there, and we are not brothers, but we think we're relatives. Our parents came from Germany about the same time, and so I call him Brother Gus, and we're fairly close with him and his children and family. And whenever there's a celebration of marriage or whatever, we're all together, and with his children and even my children. So that's how we were close with Gus Otto. And but he was a fine football player, and I'm very proud of him.
When you went to the first Super Bowl with the Raiders, what was that game like?
Well, they said it was going to be a lot of hoopla and all that stuff, and yeah, there was, but I didn't let that stuff bother me. I didn't get into that at all. All I know is I'm a kid from Wausau, Wisconsin, going against Lombardi's Packers, Ray Nitschke, Kostelnik, Jordan, those guys in the inside. That was what I was after. I had a block, basically those 3 guys, Kostelnik and Jordan, along with Nitschke, and they were an exceptional trio, and that's what I prepared for, and I'm very proud of the way that I played against them. Vince Lombardi complimented me on my play, but yet we lost, and that's what I was after, a win, not a compliment.
Was there one defensive lineman or linebacker that gave you significant trouble, that you knew when you lined up this was going to be a long afternoon?
Well, if you go to the Pro Football Hall of Fame and just go in my era and take a look at the middle linebackers and the defensive tackles that are in there, they're pretty darn good. when you got Lilly and, the likes of all those guys, Joe Green and Nitschke and Butkus and all these different inside guys, linebackers and stuff. There were some great ones in there, and those were the guys that I had to prepare to battle for. And, in order to, I guess, get the notoriety of the Hall of Fame or All-Pro, you got to be able to handle guys like that, and I'm proud to say that I did a pretty good job at that.
The Raiders were always known for their offensive lines. They had you, Gene Upshaw. You had a lot of Hall of Famers on there. Was it because of what you guys did with weightlifting that you were so much ahead of the time?
Well, it was weightlifting we did, but also there was just an awful lot of pride and poise in these guys, and we worked together hard at practice, and we wanted to be the best. Like an Upshaw and a Shell, they had tremendous pride in themselves, and naturally I was very proud of my team, and I tried to exude that pride out there on the field every day in practice and every Sunday in the game. So it was something that I think Mr. Davis instilled in us, the pride, the poise, the dedication, the commitment to excellence, all those things that you've heard about over the years. That was the Raiders. That was our Raider teams. Did you have a personal favorite quarterback to work with? I didn't have any personal favorite quarterback, no, sir. When Blanda took the snap from me, I knew we were going to do something special. I knew that he had in his mind some way to where he was going to complete some passes, get in position to get a field goal or get in position to get a touchdown. And when Stabler was in there, and Stabler played a lot of games behind me, we knew that it was going to be bam, bam, and you're going at it, let's go. And there was a lot of commitment out there, a lot of pride, like I've mentioned before. And same thing with LaMonica. LaMonica was a super athlete, and he did a lot of athletic things out there to complete passes and things. And we were ready. We practiced. We practiced hard. Teams today don't practice like many of our teams used to practice back then. So I think for success in anything, the teams have to work harder. You take the 49ers, you take the Ravens this week. Those guys worked dadgum hard for the last, the last couple of years. Look what Jim did. He 2 playoffs, and John 5 playoffs in a row. I mean, you don't get there if you don't work hard. And that's why every team out there, if they're hearing me on this broadcast, you've got to work hard if you want to get to the big time.
They're making a big to-do about concussions nowadays and how basically the players are at risk. I mean, your body, I'm looking, you had 40 surgeries, knee operations. I mean, the physical toll you took wasn't from concussions, it was from the hits.
Oh, no doubt about it. One thing you forgot about is I had my leg amputated a couple of years ago due to football injuries, and nobody really said, Jim, I'm sorry, what can we do for you? They didn't have any insurance for dismemberment or anything like that. And as far as concussions are concerned, I think it's being overplayed a little bit. I had probably about 25 concussions or more than that when I played, and I'm not complaining. I don't have dementia as of right now. My wife thinks I'm a little goofy at times, but every wife thinks that, and
right.
I don't have Alzheimer's, and I've been checked over by doctors, and they said I'm not going to have Alzheimer's. I'm beyond that. So I do have some cognitive problems. I've been checked over by Dr. Amen down in Southern California. He's concerned about some of those cognitive things that I didn't do well on the test, but I feel very good about it. I'm going to go along. I punished my body playing football like we all do, but some of these guys I think are just looking for a handout after they get through playing and get a paycheck from some medical insurance or something that is going to pay off the guys that do have some memory problems.
Now, you never missed a game during your career because of injury. How did you know when it was time to call it a career?
Well, I played 308 straight games, and I had hurt my knee. That's an understatement. Yes, I had hurt my knees, and I was going along, and in 1974, I thought, wow, this is getting kind of tough out here, and yet I made second string All-Pro after all those years. Coming into my 16th year of football, and I just had a feeling in my knee that I didn't like. It didn't seem as though I would be able to play up to the standards that I had played to at all this time, and I just didn't want to be a guy that's hanging on out there. I didn't make much money at all. I think the most money I made was $70,000 a year. That's in my 16th year of pro football. So $70,000. You got Flacco talking about 20-something million now. So anyway, I wouldn't mind hanging around with him and being his water boy or something. But I think they're just making a lot out of this thing. And sure, we all have memory loss to a certain extent. We can't think of a professor's name that we went to college, that sometimes your wife might say something to you about when you go by the store, pick up a loaf of bread, and you bring home a pound of cheese instead. And that's no big deal as far as I'm concerned. I just don't want football to be hurt. We've been playing football. I know, that's for sure. We've been playing football for many, many years, and there's been a lot of headaches out there, and there's been a lot of concussions. I've had amnesia for 3 days where I didn't know who and where I was, but I still can remember when it happened. So as long as I can remember when that happened, that's been a lot of years ago. I think I'm in pretty good shape. So I wish these guys would quit crying so damn much, and if they would add some strength in being a decent football player to begin with, they wouldn't be crying right now.
I think part of a couple problems are, one is they don't use those tackling dummies anymore. They don't learn how to tackle. They're leading with the head. And also, there's no reason for these guys to be 350, 360 pounds. For the first 6 years of football, you never saw a guy over 300 pounds. I mean, keep a weight limit on these guys.
That's true. And I hit with my head all the time. That I would lead with my head. That's the first thing I would hit the opponent, then my forearms, and then my shoulders. And I blocked the way I was taught to block, and that's the way I tried to be a perfectionist at my trade, and that's what I did every time. And you get headaches doing that. I had a concussion 3 weeks ago. I was in a wheelchair because when I take my leg off at night to sleep, I have to have a wheelchair to get me to the restroom in the hotel. And I backed up with the wheelchair in my room, and it tipped over backwards, and I hit my head right on the tile floor. It sounded like a coconut broke open. And I had a headache for like about 4 days, so I had a concussion. Sure, what the hell? I had a lot of concussions. So there I was. I didn't feel too good for about 4 or 5 days. My wife and I are in this hotel. We're off having a holiday and visiting, and I got a headache. So big deal. I mean, I probably got hit in the head that time harder than most guys ever get hit in the NFL. And so I was a little busy for a while, but you gotta suck it up and get off your backside. Play that stood out in my career. Oh, there's so many of them. There's so many plays that I can remember in my career that either I got dinged pretty good or someone dinged me. But Bill Berge. If you want to talk to somebody, find Bill Berge, and he'll tell you a story about me. And it's kind of comical because Madden is chewing me out from the sideline because Bill Berge was a rookie, and Bill was setting up his defensive line to free him from me. In other words, a defensive tackle would chip at me, and I couldn't get a free shot at Bill Berge, and Bill was making some tackles, and Madden was kind of hollering at me, Otto, can't you get that rookie? And then it is along Berge saying, yeah, Otto, can't you get that rookie? And I says, you're damn right I can get that rookie. Just I'm saying to myself. And I went after him and put him out of the game.
What was playing for Madden like?
John was, John is only about a year and a half older than me. So, to have respect for someone, like that, I had tremendous respect for Coach Madden as well as the rest of our teammates did. But, he wanted the game played a certain way, and we played it for him, and he was demanding. He would demand that we play the game that way, and that's what we would do. So, he was like one of the guys, but then he was also, a taskmaster, and he wanted the game to be played that way. So we all loved John Madden, and he was a great guy to play for.
What I never got with Gene Upshaw when he became head of the NFLPA was why he didn't take care of the former players. Did you ever have any talks with him and say, Gene, what are you doing to us?
Yeah, the thing that used to happen was I would get a lot of phone calls from retired players, and right at my home, and I would answer the phone, and they say, Jim Otto. I said, yeah. I says, what are we going to do? Upshaw won't do this, Upshaw won't do that. Can you talk to him? Well, I would talk to Gene different times, and he would, be very reluctant to give me any answers or anything. I was, and I don't like to put anybody down because Gene did a lot for the players in helping with the free agency, helping with collective bargaining agreements, stuff like that. I wasn't always in agreement with what was going on, but Gene did an awful lot for the football players. And so, it comes down to it. There's been a lot happening to football in the past years, and there's been a lot of people who've worked very hard to make these things happen. And so, as far as Gene Upshaw was concerned, I think that he was an excellent administrator and did a good job. Not everybody agreed with him, but yet he did good for football.
Why do you always refer to Al Davis as Mr. Davis? I never got that.
Well, because I normally call him Coach. But he was, with respect to people, you will give him that dignity of calling him Mr. Davis, Coach Davis. And that's what I always did. Like when I would come up to him, I would usually address him as Coach, whether we were in the office or whether we were on the field. And then there were times that when I would refer to him to people, I would refer to him as Mr. Davis. On the field and in football, I'd call him Coach Davis.
Who was the best football player you ever saw?
I think that person has yet to be seen. As far as I'm concerned, you saw a lot of great football this last weekend, and you've seen a lot of great football this past football season and in the past years. And as time goes on, we see great football players, great plays, real fine young men doing well for football and doing well for humanity out there. And football is a part of a way that we can basically address these people and communicate with people to be good leaders, be good Americans, and be great football players. And I think that great football players yet to be seen. There's, you look back and you say, gee, Johnny Unitas died young. Gee, so-and-so left us too soon. Ray Nitschke was a tough son of a gun, and how come he had to die so young? And 4 weeks ago, I had a birthday, and I sat with my grandchildren, and I just said, children, I says, can you believe Grandpops is 75 years old? I don't feel it. I says, but I am. And I says, we've been really blessed that I've been able to be here that long with you guys. And there's all these other guys out there, same way. And there's great football players that have made a mark somewhere along the way in the NFL, in college, and a mark that can be looked up at for the rest of young people's lives. And it's fantastic. It's just, to me, it's been a wonderful life that I've been able to lead. And I will always be very thankful for the big hits that I got. Some of the big hits that got me, and the victories and the celebrations afterwards and all that stuff. I'll always remember those.
How excited were you when you found out you went in the Hall of Fame?
Well, you wouldn't believe it. The day that I was notified that I was going into the Hall of Fame, I had an idea. People told me that I was up for it that year. But I was at my ranch. I had a pair of bib overalls on, and I was all full of dust and dirt. And it was, I guess it was in January when they made that announcement that I made it. But I was out there. I raised walnuts, and I had thousands of walnut trees, and I just was going to work like I normally would. And even on the day of the selection, I just went to the ranch and did some work, and the phone rang at my ranch manager's house on the ranch, and his wife came out and said, Mr. Otto, you wanted on the phone. So I went to the phone, and there they were, and they said, Jim Otto, you've been selected in the first round to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I said, oh boy, wow. I said, what do I do now? So anyway, they made arrangements with my wife and everybody that we would go to Hawaii, where they would make the announcement. It was very, very exciting for a kid that was told that he couldn't make it. He was too small, and I went out to prove that I could do it. So it was a very, very exciting time.
There's not a whole lot of centers that end up in the Hall of Fame.
Well, we got several centers in there. I'm very proud of the group that I'm with.
All right, that wraps up another edition of Sports and Torts on TalkZone.com. I'd like to thank Wes Unseld and Jim Otto for being a couple of wonderful guests today. I'd like to thank our executive producer, Dave Olson. And we encourage you to catch this wonderful show, Sports and Torts, on TalkZone next Thursday at noon, or it is also available on podcast. See you next time.